Shabbat Shalom. Here we are on the last Shabbat of 2020, December 26, 2020. And a lot of us are very happy to see 2020 leave. It's been a very challenging year, to say the least. I don't need to name all the calamities that have happened. I've experienced them all with you. Not everyone has had the same experience, but collectively, we have all had a challenge. I've been one of the lucky ones who recovered from getting the coronavirus in June. And I also have seen a lot of good, even though there has been so many calamities. The good has been the babies that have been born and the marriages that have occurred, and discovering the importance of connection, not just in our own communities, but worldwide, by being separated, how we've tried to connect with each other and maintain that closeness. When the pandemic began in March, I was in New York and I flew back on March 24th. And at the time, people were hoarding toilet paper. And I let my neighbor know I was coming home, and she said, well, there's a shortage of toilet paper here. And I said, I'm really good at stockpiling stuff. I always have stuff in my cabinet. So I have about 3 months worth of toilet paper. You're welcome to borrow the toilet paper. My kids and my aunt have once said that I'm so good at keeping backups of everything that they could go shopping in my cupboards. I'm also recording before Shabbat, the day after the Great Conjunction, the time that Jupiter and Saturn have aligned and been the closest to each other, according to astronomers, in 800 years. Things are changing. Since I last spoke to you, which was over a month ago, so much has changed. We even have a vice president-elect. And by the time I speak to you again, the President of the United States will have been inaugurated. Yesterday, Friday, was the 10th of Tevet, the fast which commemorates the the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem and the ultimate destruction of the Holy Temple. In Israel today, we say Kaddish, the memorial prayer for the dead, for those whose date of death is unknown. But that fast day is not just a grieving day. It's also a day to move us towards compassion and goodness. Today's Torah portion, Vayigash, which means draw near, begins, Vayigash elav Yehuda. Judah drew near. He drew near to Joseph. We've been reading for the last few weeks the story of Joseph, from where he's a boy who has dreams that arouse the jealousy of his siblings, and then they throw him in a pit. And we see how his elder brother Reuben tried to stop the brothers from killing him. And then Judah, who is in the opening of this week's portion, suggested that they sell Joseph into slavery rather than kill him. Judah was Joseph's fourth eldest brother. He had 11 brothers. One was his blood brother, and the others were stepbrothers. They were brothers from another mother, but the same father of Jacob. We see then how Joseph becomes a prisoner and interprets the dreams of fellow prisoners, and then comes to the attention of Pharaoh. And when he's called before Pharaoh, he interprets the dreams to predict that there will be a famine, and therefore to stockpile food and grain and things that won't rot, so that when there is famine, in Egypt, there will be food for people. And then that in turn makes the brothers come down to Egypt to get food. And there's this little cat and mouse game that's going on because Joseph knows he's now the grand vizier of Egypt, second in command to Pharaoh, and he knows that these are his brothers, but they don't recognize him because 20 years ago, they threw him in a pit. This is the story so far. The brothers come to Egypt. On the way back, Joseph has hidden a cup in Benjamin, his blood brother's, his youngest brother's pack. And then they're brought back to Egypt. And he says to the brothers that they have to, he has to leave Benjamin as hostage, as his slave. And Judah then, in the opening of this week's portion, draws near. And we see a different Judah from 20 years ago that said, throw him in the pit. We see a Judah who has had to sit and watch his father grieve over a son he thought he lost. And Benjamin, who's the only child left from his wife, Rachel, is his youngest. And Judah knew that it would really break Jacob. It might kill him if they didn't come back with Benjamin. And in fact, he had promised his father that he would take care of Benjamin. So we open this week's portion with this climax where Joseph was planning on doing this big reveal. But as Judah comes forward and tries to save his younger brother, there's such a contrast here to what we read at the very beginning of other brothers, Cain and Abel, where Cain kills Abel, and when God says to him, where is your brother? He says, am I my brother's keeper? And here Judah is coming forward and saying, yes, I am my brother's keeper, which didn't happen 20 years ago when they threw Joseph in the pit. So Judah had lived with this pain and had transformed by taking responsibility for his father and begging Joseph to take him in his place, in Benjamin's place. And that in turn causes a transformation in Joseph. Instead of the, yay, I'm Joseph, he falls on Judah's shoulder and cries and says, I'm your brother Joseph. Now, instead of this cat and mouse, it's here I am, I'm Joseph, I'm your brother. So I read the story a different way every year, but this year in 2020, I think, can we be our brother's keepers, both in our own country and in the world? As we move forward into the first Shabbat of 2021, with everything that's going on, can we take the lesson of Judah to draw near in heart? In fact, the word Judaism comes from the name Judah. Can we take our cue from Joseph, who, by starting a cat and mouse game, actually ended up embracing his brother? The planets are aligned at a tipping point. There really is hope. We can find ourselves in this Torah portion and be that one person to make a difference. Each of us has a gift like Judah and like Joseph, and each of us has a way to draw near and make a difference in the world. Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy the end of 2020. Find the good in it and bring the good into next year.